and certainly the movement of the cars really, it's fun to watch. It's not like being there. It's just hard not being there, I must say.
I imagine, and of course, watching your very own team participate as well. I mean, how do you actually find the realism of this 24 Hours of Le Mans Virtual?
Well, you can see the car right there coming in. It had some oversteer coming into that corner, so the car looks like you're watching a movie. So it's a great tool. I think we're all getting used to this new world that we're living in, but we've been training with this technology for many years, and now we're getting an opportunity to see how talented some people are in this world, in the virtual racing world. There's some very quick drivers.
And is it something you're familiar with?
Racing.
Sim racing?
A little bit, yeah. We would definitely, for tracks that you hadn't been to, it was a great way to learn the track, although the elevation change is slightly different when you get there in person, but it does help you certainly get up to speed a lot faster.
I mean, just in, the real 24 Hours of Le Mans, it's getting late now, it's getting dark. I mean, having participated in 24 Hours of Le Mans, what would you say was the hardest part of the race for you?
Well, certainly it's the week leading up to the event and to the race itself. Takes a lot out of you emotionally, so you have to prepare yourself for that. And then when the race starts, you're really quite tired and happy for it to begin. But then you go on sheer adrenaline and sort of the excitement of the race and the drama of the race as it unfolds. So it's a very special event. It's unlike anything else, and to be a part of it is really quite special.
So yeah, you've participated.
So it's nice that we're seeing something here.
You've taken part 4 times in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. What does it mean to you as an American to participate in this legendary event?
Well, to me, it's the most important race in the world, but also I'm coming at it from the perspective of an event as an AM driver that you can be a part of with world-class athletes, and to be racing out there with all of these other models. You see the Corvette and the Ferrari, Porsche, of course, and all of those great makes and the team. So it's really special to be a part of the race, and I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to compete, 4 times in this incredible event. Look at that. Great.
So you've stepped out of the cockpit, but you're still present, especially in the pits. I mean, watching your team driving, I mean, what's hard? Watching from the sidelines or competing? What's harder for you?
Well, it's a completely different discipline when you're in the car, and then when you're out of the car, you're looking at so many other things. You're looking at all the cars, you're looking at the strategy. It's a different muscle that you're exercising, and I like it. I mean, to me, just to be around the track in any capacity, and certainly when you're embedded in a team, you understand the strategies and the things that you're overcoming or things that you need to work on, and that's quite exciting. Although I did get in the car this year and did some testing. I was going to do some sprint races this year, but I'm not sure with everything going on in the world right now if that's going to happen.
Right, so we have
definitely be. Ooh.
No, sorry, I have cut you off there.
A car spin there. Sorry, there's a spin coming out.
Okay,
like Indianapolis.
Effectively. I mean, even watching it virtually, I can see you're really reacting to it. I mean, as if you're like watching it, really.
Well, I think the technology is a really good job. You see the cars moving around. You see the suspension working. So it looks like very similar to what we'd be seeing in the car in real life. And now we're starting to see the shadows coming. We'll lose the light here in about an hour, and then it will get interesting to see then what the technology is like. But I think for race fans, certainly for the environment, this is a good thing. To not be in France right now at Le Mans is very hard, I think, on a great many people. And look at that. You can see on power down with the Ferrari, it's losing traction. So it's really fascinating to watch these cars move around. And a little dust coming up on the curve or the exit there. It was really nice.
Patrick, you're really into this. I'm really actually enjoying it. You should have come over here and commentated for us.
Yeah, I liked it. Let's see how we're doing right now. So we're currently running, I think, in 9th position. We're, I think, a lap down after that red flag. So we had the safety car out, caught us out a little bit. But anyway.
Well, I think you're doing a fantastic job. I could have just let you commentate that, actually, because it's quite agreeable to hear you commentate 24 Hours of Le Mans Virtual. Last question, when are we going to see you back? And a question from Alan McNeish, are we going to see you back in a cockpit more precisely?
Yeah, Alan, hopefully. I had a good test at Sebring in the spring, felt really good in the car. There's some work I need to do. I just need some testing, but certainly we'll be at Le Mans this year in August if all goes well. I don't want to miss that. And as soon as we can get cleared to do some testing, I'll get back in the car. I certainly miss it. I miss the camaraderie. I miss all of you. You know, I have to tell you, it's going to be a tough race because just mentally to stay focused, even in this capacity, I think is going to be a challenge for the drivers.
Now, Patrick, I just got a message through from the producer who thinks you've done such a great job of commentating live then. He just said, do you mind commentating the spin that you just saw in slow-mo?
Yeah, who was in the car, do you know? I think they were just coming into Indianapolis. Looks like, oh, here you go. Someone's getting a little aggressive going in there. Hanging on, hanging on, hanging on. And just assist him. And help him straighten it out.
It's
there
Van
a little
Doren.
bit too much. Ooh, and then, unfortunately, collected a few too many people there. That's an instance. That didn't need to happen, actually, so that's unfortunate. I'm sure the stewards will be all over that.
It is unfortunate, but thank you so much for commentating that little spin for us, and of course for chatting to us about the 24 hours of Le Mans. Have a lovely afternoon. I think it's afternoon now in Malibu, and we're just, you know, slipping into nighttime over here. So yeah, we hope to see you in September.
I hope to see you then too, and great job, everybody. It's nice to see this is happening. We have some sense of normal life going on right now with everything happening. So thank you for this distraction momentarily from the world that we live in, and enjoy the evening.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Haley, and thank you to Patrick Dempsey. I thought she said when we had the race director on, the check is in the post, because that was a solid commentary stint there. So welcome back, everybody, to your commentary team. I'm Martin Haven. Lewis McGlade is still with me, and Alan McNish as well. Safety car is out, Alan. We saw that sort of multiple GTE incident, and Lewis, one of the problems with racing is getting caught up in somebody else's accident, and the two cars that spun were not part of that accident. No safety car, that was an erroneous graphic, but those two Porsches that were spun out weren't part of, they didn't cause the accident, they weren't involved in that battle, and that's, you know, stuff that comes to you in a race is hard to avoid sometimes.
Oh, absolutely, especially into Indianapolis. There was a little bit of aggressive racing from the Porsche down the inside. There was still side-by-side, a little bit of contact with the Marla car, and then it spun out, that Marla being the Aston Martin. I think it took out a Corvette on the exit. Not sure which one it was. Both of them spinning out. Massive loss of time. Hopefully there's not too much damage on the car, although there will be a little touch, obviously some suspension damage. The safety car thing, I'm sure a few teams just a touch panicked, but nevertheless, one thing I want to just very quickly say.
Not the least our race direction team. I didn't say a safety car.
One thing I'll say though, Ferrari, hello, where have you come from? The red flag comes out. We've got a Ferrari in 5th place, making a move on Nicky Katzberg. Enzo Benito behind the wheel in the 52 car, now moving his way forward. That's not something we really expected. I don't know where they're finding this time.
Alan McNish, qualifying is one thing, racing is another. With a pause in the red flag as somebody hits the wall hard in the Porsche curves, and that is the same wall that cost Mario and Michael and John Andretti a chance of a podium finish in Mario's last Le Mans. It was the number 20 car that hit the wall. 21. But Alan, a chance just to like shut off the driving and have a 10-minute conversation during the red flag about what we're going to do about setup. Maybe that's been given them the downtime they needed to make a difference.
Yeah, it's possible, and it's possible that they actually are, it just sort of, it's changing, the race is changing. You can see the lap times are evolving and it's coming to them. You know, if I look at it from the normal race in the middle of June, then they tend not to qualify very well, and they tend to go well in the race, and they tend to be there when the checkered flag falls somehow. And there's a few times when we scratched our heads in exactly the same way and thought, how on earth have they done that? So I think there's an element that it's the same people that are running it, remember?
Yeah.
Drivers and also engineers behind it. So I would have thought there is an element of strategy in that.
And let's also not forget, we talked about this a couple of times, but for those who are sort of tuning into the race and haven't been here right since the beginning, that Ferrari 488 GTE did not exist. Literally, there was no Ferrari in the game until a week ago. So everybody else who's raced the Astons, who's raced the Porsches, particularly the Porsches, and the Corvettes, have had weeks, months of experience with this car. Ferrari have had literally days of experience. So every minute they spend in the car is adding to that knowledge, and they're able to to just start to bring themselves closer to a front-running pace, and maybe that's having a big effect as well.
Of course, they are learning the car as it comes around. The Porsche, one of the preferred 2 cars from the GTE category. The other one that we don't have today is the M8. That's the other more sort of preferred car from it. We've got the Corvette now. It's a slightly different balance of performance than what we've had previously in R-Factor 2. And with that Ferrari being new, everything is sort of being tailored towards that. One thing I'm just going to point out a little bit about learning from the red flag scenario in the previous race start. We've had 2Cs Motorsports. They've gone for 10 laps against. They've done the outlap and they'll do a 10-lap stint. So they're still on schedule. Everyone else has come into pit lane, likes of Redline, of Bicolis Burst Esports, the Veloce cars. However, there is the number 13 Rebellion Williams Esports car, the Panis Racing AAA car, and TDS E-Racing Motul. Those have all learnt from what the 2Cs car did earlier, and they've gone, you know what, we can do that as well. And they have done that. They're staying out for their 10th consecutive lap.
It's going to be interesting to see how many other teams figure out what the little nuance is that's allowing them to do that. Is it feather-footed driving? I mean, Ollie Rowland was fast and abstemious, and Alan McNish, that is absolute gold dust. If you can keep the pace up and save fuel, then you know, that's the mecca for Le Mans racing.
Yeah, it is, and it's areas like coming down here through the second kink, as there's a little bit of wheel rubbing. That's not exactly what you want to do, but coming into this right-hander, you can actually lift off and let the car roll through the corner, or you can brake and accelerate again. And those are the type of corners at Le Mans. Porsche's another one where you don't necessarily need to mash the throttle, and you can keep the momentum of the car, which actually puts less load into your tyre. It means you use less brake energy, and also in that as well, you save a little bit of fuel. But that's a characteristic that suits some drivers and not others. And so therefore some, and I have to say myself, I had to work to do that. It wasn't my natural style. Tom Christensen, who I spoke to earlier on, Tommy Boy was more naturally in that way. In some other things that it worked for me, and some things worked for him. But there's no question about it. If you can achieve both of them at this place, then it is a big advantage.
That robust pass, by the way, was for position. That was for 17th place. Young Dutch prodigy Job van Uytert in the 22 United Autosports car, going by Antonin Borger, one of the real-world cool racing drivers. Now, Job hasn't raced in the real world for United. He's raced in LMP3 and LMP2, was one of the standout newcomers to Le Mans last year in the 24 hours with
TDS.
Yes, exactly so, with TDS. And so, I mean, his progress up the ladder has been really, really impressive. And to see him also producing the pace here in the sim world is very impressive as well. Yeah,
he's going to race for United when we return back to competition outside, and his progress, as you say, is certainly someone that the Dutch are producing a lot of very good racing drivers at the moment. You know, they're like buses in a way. One of them comes along and then there's a lot of them directly afterwards. But right now, Job van Uytert, certainly in sports car racing, is he's doing the job without a question. And
for somebody like Job, you know, endurance racing isn't quite such a big thing in the Netherlands, but having somebody like Max Verstappen, who's kind of plugged the country back into successful Dutch motor racing, courtesy of his success and his profile in Formula One, a rising tide floats all boats. More companies, more sponsors, potential sponsors will be aware and switched onto motor racing, and will see it as something that the public like. And there's the chance then for guys like Job and Geert van der Garde and all the others to try and raise a little bit more money and a little bit more profile on the fact that lots more Dutch companies and lots more Dutch fans and critically TV viewers are getting into motorsport. So hopefully, as with Tom Christensen, you know, turning Denmark back onto motor racing and Le Mans after so many years, after John Nielsen's big successes in the 80s, they'll see that effect. Now, you talked about the evening lights, shadows lengthening, the sun's heading down towards the horizon, but it's bright, the weather is good, so the light, the blue light after the sun sets, is going to remain pretty good for visibility for a long while yet.
Yes, it will do, but the one thing actually that I'm going to suggest they need to do is just at that moment there, you pass a house on the right-hand side as you come out the second chicane. next to the house there's a sort of big lake. And in that lake, there's lots of mosquitoes. So at this time of night, the mosquitoes come out, and suddenly you get this point where it covers your windscreen. So you go from having a clear windscreen to a dirty windscreen in the space of about a second, just at that particular point. So maybe they need to, that's part of the, I would say, the game adaptation.
I wonder if the game does cover your windscreen in mosquito squish. We'll have to take a little look from some of the onboards and take a look. Gregor Huttu leading for Team Redline. Jesper Pedersen, this is an all-sim pro battle for first and second position, and nothing going between the two of them in terms of pace. Team Redline leading from Bajkoles are pole sitters. Heading into the lengthening evening shadows, Gregor Huttu, our race leader for Team Redline, car number 20. This is one that everybody who's been looking at as a potential winner of this race, not least because of the real-world drivers.
Information to the pit lane, information to the pit lane. 1 second stop-and-go penalty on car 9 for a contact with car 33 at the entrance of the first chicane. Car 9 basically fishtailed car 33 on the braking point.
Well, I think that was pretty clear by what happened there. It was pulling in, trying to pull in to get your braking line perfect, but not actually being in front of the car that you're overtaking. It is a difficult thing, I've got to be honest, because once you've gone past and the driver sits very forward in the car in the overall terms, once you've gone past, to judge the length of something behind you, especially when you're traveling at, you know, probably 195 miles per hour at that particular point, is it's not quite so easy.
Absolutely right. Particularly when you haven't necessarily got quite the periphery that you might normally do. Well, you can see the running total at the moment for Princess Charlene of Monaco's appeal. Let's hear from her now.
24 hours where you can donate through the Princess Charlene of Monaco Foundation.
You can indeed all throughout the race, raising funds with this appeal for the battle against COVID-19. It's an international fund to raise money for development and distribution of an antivirus for COVID-19. You can see the details down there at the bottom of the screen. So please, if you've got a euro or two, or a dollar or a peso, or whatever it is in your particular country where you're watching us, please take the time to just make a tiny donation. There will be millions of people watching over the 24 hours, and hopefully we'll be able to raise a substantial amount of money for that. Race continues. It is 9:17 here in Europe. Let's hear from Pierre Rag in Paris.
Next to Pierre Rag. So from the 36 car team, Signatec Alpine, you've just finished your stint. How did it go for you?
Quite hard because I make trouble with the GT car during the restart of after the red flag. So I must stay on the track and back the car in the garage with less damage as possible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, Pierre racing for Signatec Alpine Elf in the real world and in the virtual world. And Alan, his virtual world is our real world, because I'm confusing myself, because he is sitting in the TV studio with us in his sim rig. And he's just finished a stint, as he said, got a little bit tangled up in the GT field at the restart. But again, that is all part of the business of racing at Le Mans. Traffic after lap 3 is a constant irritation for the quicker drivers, and quicker cars are a constant irritation for the GTE cars.
And another irritation is as you come down here, you can see the slipstreaming round the outside at the second kink. You don't want to be getting too close there, but the sun is getting lower and lower, and you'll see it directly in probably 2 or 3 laps time into your eyes at that point. So it means that the braking through that right and the left is very, very difficult. Okay, in this lap, but the difficult sun points are coming. But the battle at the front is 0.7 of a second. Bajkoles, led from pole position, had the penalty and dropped right down the order, is back, and it's only 0.7 of a second off the lead.
Well, that is phenomenal pace from the Bajkoles racing team, and since that jump start and the drive-through penalty, they have been fast and kept their noses clean. "17 hours and 40 minutes to go in the virtual 24 Hours of Le Mans 2020. Team Redline and Baikonur running 1-2, 0.8 of a second apart. Alan McNish, is the battle for the lead as we head into dusk.
Yeah, and this is a battle for third place. We've got McDuff, the young American, just up ahead of Stoffel Vandoorne, ex-F1 driver, battling it out now as they come up towards the Dunlop chicane. And dusk is coming. There's still a long night to go and a lot of day and Sunday, but right now the battle is really, really close there for first and second. But we've got to say, Vandoorne is only 5 seconds off the overall lead as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, the lead battle is less than a second apart. Third, fourth is less than a second apart as well. So two phenomenal battles to watch. We ride on board with Jesper Pedersen, 0.6 of a second. So he lost 2 tenths there in traffic, but here we go. Now, out of Tertre Rouge, he's got a really good run. He's in the tow. He's getting a slipstream. He's going to slingshot past this car, and his target is in front.
Yeah, I have to say that there he's going to get into the lead now, it looks like, as they come down into the chicane. Hutu was very, very kind. He could have blocked to the inside and then made the Ferrari I would say the blocker that wouldn't have allowed him to go over into the lead. So now Pedersen's in the lead. Hutu is down to second. Baikonur leading, Team Redline second.
Yeah, that was a fantastic, opportune move. He was getting a sort of multiple tow, not just from his target in front of him to take the lead, but also from a couple of GT cars. All of that wash helping him, and he slingshotted by Jesper Pedersen, going by Gregor Hutu. And so our pole sitters are back in the lead after 6 hours and 20 minutes of the 24 Hours of Le Mans virtual for 2020. Stoffel Vandoorne 2.1 behind. The gap is coming down. He's in third. He did get by the 2Cs Motorsport car at the beginning of that lap as well. Just as we were watching the battle for the lead, third place changed hands. Stoffel Vandoorne, as we've seen before, on a real charge. And there, traffic breaking up the lead battle. And Alan, this is something when you see that there's a tiny gap like that, as the leader, Pedersen, dives down the inside of the Corvette and knows that his rival isn't going to get by, you go, yes, Matt got it. Just put an extra little bit of breathing space between the two of them.
Yeah, it is, and that's the times you try to make, especially right now, down into Indy. If you get past someone there, and then you're clear to keep the momentum through the corner, and the car behind has got a lot of work to do. If it doesn't get past into Indy, it's got to overtake on the right-hand side, usually, down into Arnage, which compromises the exit. On this occasion, the Aston Martin kept well to the right to allow Hutu to get a clean run into Arnage and a clean exit. So he's still in the game, but certainly the car ahead, you've got to try to maximise it whenever you can.
Yeah, but look who's right behind Hutu, and here he comes, Stoffel Vandoorne in that mostly white car in Hunter Killer mode. He's in third, 1.7 off the lead, and Hutu is 0.8 off the lead, so the gap between them is half a second and a fraction less, and Stoffel Vandoorne is coming with a massive head of steam up behind Gregor Hutu, so the Hungarian really under pressure, and there he's catching a Ferrari in just the wrong place. Here comes Vandoorne. Is he going to get a run on him into the Ford chicane?
Yeah, it's going to be tough because it's tight into there, but he's looking at it, but decided not to do it. You turn in very early into that chicane, so the gap that you think is there closes down extremely quickly. Something Vandoorne knows already. He has raced around here in the Le Mans 24 Hours, and so he is aware of that. Now coming up into the chicane, I would suggest now it's going in towards the first chicane out of Tertre Rouge, the long run down the straight, because with these cars up ahead, unless they sort of get into the mix a little bit, which I don't think they will, he'll overtake on the Aston on the right hand side, and then it's going to be a clear. Actually, for Vandoorne, he had to lift a little bit. So now it's the run down towards the first chicane. He'll be setting that up to try to get a nice run through Tertre Rouge with extra momentum. Look at that GT up ahead. They may also come into the mix.
Yeah, because Hutu might have to just breathe off the fraction of the throttle to stop running into the back of the Porsche. He gets out onto the Mulsanne straight. Here comes Stoffel Vandoorne. And again, being behind Alan, you know, our sim racing duo here, our experts, Chris McCarthy and Lewis McLeod, say there is a big tow for the LMP2 cars in that dirty air. And so here he comes, steaming up behind Gregor Hutu is Stoffel Vandoorne. Now we're looking back from Jesper Pedersen. Pedersen has been held up in traffic because that's the second place car behind. So 1, 2, 3, a second covering the top three in a prototype class, but Stoffel Vandoorne being held up equally, and that gap is now stretched out. So now, suddenly, the elastic has twanged, and Hutu is right behind Jesper Pedersen. That's the battle for the lead. Stoffel Vandoorne didn't get the brakes in traffic that he needed in and out of the first chicane.
Yeah, not on this occasion, that's for sure. It went the other direction, but I'm not quite sure that Hutu's got the pace just in the straight on the slipstream to be able to have a look down into Mulsanne corner. He is close, and as you say, he will use that, but ultimately he's got to make sure that he's got a good braking, so he's pulling out a little bit, and he wasn't really having too much of a look. He put his car in a position where it actually had air going over the front of it, which gave him vision and also stability.
Well, there are the top 3 drivers on the right-hand side. Top of your screen, Jesper Pedersen. In the middle, Gregor Hutu. At the bottom, Stoffel Vandoorne. 100% concentration from all 3, because at 300 kilometers an hour, this is a heck of a battle as they speed around the fastest part of the Le Mans circuit down into the fast right and the slower left at Indianapolis.
Yeah, and there's traffic up ahead. You see that car just coming in. There's 2 or 3 of them, so that could play a part coming into Porsche corners. I think the GT car's probably okay out of it. It's an LMP2 that's up ahead, so maybe not in this occasion, but they'll slide past by the time they get there. But that's the sort of thing, as the second car, you're looking to see the traffic that's going to be coming up ahead of you and what you're going to do to position it when your competitor directly in front you're trying to overtake hits it. So you put them in a compromising position.
Yeah, you've got to work out whether you're going to have to slow down as well, or whether you are just going to have a dive as they get held up. Lead battle, 6 hours into Le Mans, 0.2 of a second. Top 4 covered by under 2 seconds. We haven't talked about the 2C's Motorsport car in 4th place for a couple of laps, but he is still right there to pick up the pieces if it all goes wrong, Rory McDuff. American driver not far away. Look at the way that they ride the curves. This is one of the things that the real world drivers go, no, still can't get my head around that. You can't thunder over the curbs in the Ford chicane quite the way that you can in this virtual race. Take a look here in traffic. Oh! One of the Corvette cars and the Jenson Button team car.
That was the curb on the right-hand side. He ran over the curb, it bellied the car, it danced around, very bumpy. And because of the load trying to sort it out, he turned left into the Corvette, spun them around. So I would think in normality, if you saw the fishtailing penalties from before, then that should be a little bit more than a fishtail.
Yeah, likely so. That was the Team Rocket Sport Zansho car, number 23 of Al Buncombe. He's in 14th place in the LMP2, and they are 1 lap off the lead. I'm not sure which of the 2 Corvette racing entries that was. Nicky Katsberg's in the 63 car, Jan Magnussen in 64. Jan Magnussen with full-on Dane Viking beard now, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, he's been locked down for a while, and he was a big Viking before, so it certainly...
Has he run out of razor blades? I thought it was toilet roll and pasta that were the big panic buy items. Clearly no panic buying of razor blades in his household.
No, but there you see the top 3, and they're all in one line with 4th position just a little bit behind. Looks like that Pedersen's just sort of got a little bit of breathing space. I wouldn't say it's a lot of time breathing space, but it's not as if Hutu is running all over the back wing now. Since he got to the Porsche corners, he was able to break, I would have said, the attack of Hutu just on this particular occasion. However, Hutu's close enough that as soon as there's any sniff of traffic up ahead, he's going to be back in that attacking place again.
Gregor Hutu finish. I mistakenly called him Hungarian, I think, just a little while ago, but still.
Oh, he's run wide.
Oh,
very, very wide. That's
the leader, the Baikonur car, under braking, and Gregor Hutu makes no mistakes. That's your top 3. Right behind is Stoffel Vandoorne. He's going to want to get by as well. And in this race, as in the real race, Alan, running out wide deteriorates your tyre grip. So the leader, or the erstwhile leader, Jesper Pedersen, has to be very careful here because you need all the grip you can get from your tyres. Look at this, side by side, door handle to door handle, 3 for the lead into Indianapolis. I don't care whether these are real cars or sim racing cars, this is real door handle to door handle racing, and these guys are putting on a heck of a show. And there's the 4th place car in the shot as well.
Yeah, I was surprised that Van Dorn had a little look round down the inside of Hutu, but I was surprised that Pedersen actually kept it round the outside. I thought that Hutu was going to go into the lead, but no, Pedersen sort of showed a robustness there. He's not going to give up that lead very easily. They've came back from quite a long way behind, but this part of the circuit, he is very quick. Or alternatively, looking at the fact that Van Dorn's right behind Hutu, I would have said the red line car isn't very good in the Porsche corners.
Again, you know, the sim pros are having to set the car up so that the race pros can live with it. The sim drivers, sort of like Michael Schumacher, would prefer a car that's pointier, that's dartier at the front. They'll deal with it sliding around, but they don't think the pro racers can quite so much. So there is that compromise setup, and maybe Hutu's struggling with that a bit. Evening at Le Mans since 1923. This has been a kind of magical time. Probably in those days on stone gravel roads, it was less poetic than it is now for us watching, but it is still a wonderful, wonderful time. And this is one of the things that makes this race and races like Daytona so different, is that you race at night. And Alan McNish, there are so few places where that happens. We've got to cherish them as much as we can.
And we will cherish them tonight.
Yeah, definitely we will. And those of you for whom it is not yet night, it might still be the middle of the morning, it might be lunchtime, it might be afternoon, stay with us. We will be broadcasting all the way through to the end of the 24 hours. We'll have a roundup and a chat with our podium finishers before we go off air. So we will be bringing you all the pictures and all the coverage throughout the European night. And for drivers Brendan Hartley in New Zealand, the Toyota drivers in Japan, throughout the rest of their day. Brendan Hartley starting the race for Toyota, for his team, despite the fact that it was the wee small hours back home in New Zealand. So he's doing Le Mans the wrong way around. He's racing from night through the day and back into night again.
I've got to be honest, I was surprised at that, because when I looked at their driver lineup prior to the start of the race, I wrote down a couple of notes, and one of them was go east. Brendan Hartley's 10 hours ahead to European time, so he should normally run through our night time,
yes,
and it's less of a time zone change in comparison to if he's actually in the real race, which he'll do in September. Yamashita is the same, and also Kobayashi. And so from that perspective, I thought they would do it completely the other way around.
Yeah.
Or if you go west, then you've got Jenson Button.
Well, Jenson Button starting on the Pacific coast of the USA. Yeah, I mean, he's 8 hours behind us or whatever, so 9 hours. So, yep, I mean, barely time for a croissant and a coffee, and suddenly the race is starting. Now, that's a really weird way to run. I mean, apart from all the weirdness around this Le Mans race, that's a really weird way to do it at a totally different... Imagine starting Le Mans at breakfast time. You'd feel cheated, wouldn't you? You get to breakfast on Sunday and go, oh, is it all over? What happened to racing into the middle of the afternoon when we're all doggo? So
I think it depends if you're leading or second at the time. If you're leading, you're quite happy.
Yeah, always.
24 hours finished and you've won. If you're second, then you always want that little bit more time.
Well, let's talk about our leader. Jesper Pedersen survived that heart-in-the-mouth moment, but he's still only a couple of car lengths ahead of Gerger Hutu. Stoffel Van Dorn now just about a second back, so in third place. And now the gap behind Stoffel Van Dorn to the 2Cs Motorsport car in fourth position is just about 3 seconds to Rory McDuff. So he's holding station, but he's either not willing or not able to get involved in this titanic arm wrestling match for the lead of the race.
And Van Dorn just dropped a little bit of a wheel off there. He ran a little bit over the curb on the inside, which then bounced him out. But they're all sitting there, and you see that on the right-hand side, just before as they came through the Porsche curves, the intensity on their face, the concentration, because you know, they're spotted every single apex. Stoffel, I haven't seen him blink. Look at that, just try to count how long it takes between blinks as we are watching him live, sitting in his living room in Monaco. We're here in Paris, and the other guys are somewhere else around about the world.
Yeah, and that's one of the remarkable things about this, that drivers are coming into this race from 37 different countries and almost every continent. 17 hours and 25 minutes remain in the 24 Hours of Le Mans 2020, the virtual edition. This first ever mixing of oil and water. The real world drivers, the sim world drivers, the real world teams, the sim teams, and the Le Mans TV crew that would normally have been at the Circuit de la Sarthe, bringing you the live pictures as we head into dusk. So the scene is very familiar. The surroundings, for some of us, are very familiar and yet so strangely different. And there, oh, a little spin and an uncomfortable, a really uncomfortable rejoin. That's the number 22 United Autosports car. Who's at the wheel of that? It's
Job van Uytert's at the wheel of that one. He's had a collision with the 33.
In fact, it wasn't 22, that was Catherine Legge in the Richard Mille Racing Team machine. So she spun coming into the chicane, 2 wheels on the grass, and then rejoined blind into traffic and took out the R8G Corvette. That was the Romain Grosjean team Corvette. That's facing the wrong way, so she spun out of 22nd place. Catherine Legge, the single-seater IndyCar driver and team owner. And that car now going to have to head to the pits, you would think, for an unscheduled stop, as our lead battle shows no signs whatsoever of calming down.
No, it certainly doesn't. As they come down to Indy, it's not going to be an easy one to try and make the overtake there. The car ahead's definitely got position on the road and also aerodynamic grip, but the car behind's got lack of visibility and reduced aero. And so it's a case of cat and mouse at the moment, just waiting. Right now, you've got these 2 GTs that will get up ahead. It's the car ahead of them that I think it could come into the mix. And if it is a GT car, it'll be as you go through the second left-hander into Porsche and into karting. And that'll be the opportunity there for either this car we're riding on board with, which is Hutu, or behind Stoffel Vandoorne. Here they've caught it in the first one, not the second left. They've caught it the first one. And now here's your opportunity. I think all of them have sort of made it through one after the other on this occasion.
Yeah, poor Corvette driver trying to hold his line and hold that big tank of a Corvette on line and through the Porsche curves, one of the fastest, most dangerous parts of the track. And then all these prototypes are coming steaming by, their turbulent weight disrupting his car, the sidewash off their car, pushing him offline. It's not easy being a GT driver at the best of times. That number 80 Corvette, by the way, I think had just come out after a pit stop, so that's a really tough break for them to get clattered by Catherine Legge's prototype car.
Yeah, she dropped a wheel on the grass on the entry. Done 15 laps on its previous stint, so you're right, it was just on its way out of the pits.
Yeah,
I read 22 on the side on the quick view, and it was actually 22nd position as opposed to the 20 car number 22 in this one.
That was my idiot mistake as well. Now that it's getting darker, those numbers are showing up much more clearly. So that was Risto Tapik, the Estonian driver, getting clattered on his outlap. Take a look again, Catherine Legge trying to make room for herself as she turns in, 2 wheels onto the dirt, rejoins, and bang. That's the Romain Grosjean team Corvette flying up in the air from on board with Catherine. How much visibility has she got? Well, the peripheral vision isn't great, but rejoining in the middle of a pack of cars, not ideal for anybody. So that car has sustained damage. And I think Risto probably having to head back to the pits as well, from whence he had just departed. He'll give it a lap or so to try and figure out how much damage had been done. And that car was 7th in the class in that big pack of cars. And in fact, it looks as though he is continuing at relatively decent speed. So maybe that biff in the door actually hasn't upset the balance of the car. Josh Rogers, the pole sitter in GT, is the leader in the 92 Porsche eSports car. Second is his Porsche Junior teammate Matt Campbell. And third is the Ferrari of Enzo Bonito. So the Ferrari number 52 car up to 3rd place. Talk amongst yourselves. Charles Leclerc started that car on row 20 of the grid in 39th place overall, so 9th in the class in GTE, because we have 30 LMP2 cars who qualified ahead of all of them. And that car is fighting its way back in, and Matt Campbell with a real race on his hands, and he loses 2nd place. Enzo Bonito goes the long way round the outside. Anna McNish, that's a ballsy move.
I've got to say, the way he threw that car in as well, it was like it was a rallycross car. It wasn't the entry to 160 miles an hour, 240 kilometers per hour right-hander, but he's grabbed a hold of that Ferrari and chucking it around. He means business on that one.
And of course, that is not one of the AF Corsa factory Ferrari teams. The 52 car is the Racing Together car that is predominantly being driven by 3 of their drivers who are in the Automobile Club de Monaco. Easy for me to say.
ACM.
Automobile Club de Monaco, there you go.
Just call it the ACM, it's a lot easier.
I don't like TLAs, 3-letter acronyms, but I can say them more easily, which is why they exist, I guess. On board with the Team Redline car, and no sign of the red mist for Gregor Huttu. This is a really clinical battle between these 3 drivers. Our race leader Jesper Pedersen, Gregor Huttu and Stoffel van Dorn. He's still just 1.8 seconds off the lead, so only about a second behind the Redline car that we ride on board with.
Also to note from that, hello, by the way.
Welcome back.
The 2C's car is not very fast. We've actually got a 4-way battle for the lead here in LMP. I did see a lot of this racing. It's been madness between these top lot. Absolutely going at it. You'd think it is a sprint race, wouldn't you? With the level of aggression, I guess, from that racing.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And you know, when they were 3 together, 2 wide, and Van Dorn sticking his nose in going into Indianapolis, I mean, that was an absolute zenith of good controlled racing, because there was no contact between the 3 of them, which would have resulted in all of them having to make a fairly long and sustained trip to the pits. Jesper Pedersen for Bike-Collars Racing, our overall leader and in LMP2, and Josh Rogers, the Aussie who's racing in Germany. That's where he spends his e-sports season, racing with one of the German e-sport teams. He and his housemates all racing together. Let's hear from our race director, Eduardo Freitas.
Information to the pit lane. 1 second stop and go penalty on car 50 for rejoining the track in a dangerous manner and hitting another car. 1 second stop and go penalty on car 50 for an unsafe rejoining of the track after the spin and hitting car 80.
Martin, I think you...
Well, as Alan Manish suggested, that incurred the penalty from the stewards. That was a big hit as well, wasn't it? So, again, Lewis McGlade, you know, what damage is that going to do to her car? One of the anomalies of this R-Factor 2 platform is that it doesn't show bodywork damage, but the driver will feel it, the performance will degrade, the handling will be off. Things will start overheating potentially, because, you know, in the real world, your cooling system would have been damaged, your aero would have been damaged, possibly floor, suspension, I mean, all sorts of things. And that reflects in what you feel in your sim rig.
Yeah, absolutely. With contact of that degree, there is going to be significant damage to that car, to both of those cars. I know Risto Capet has dropped back quite a lot from that incident, was battling up there with the leaders. It is going to make things very uncomfortable, particularly on the rear end of the car. That's where you more notice these kind of things. You get some suspension damage like that, you get damage on the rear of the car. Now, what that does is obviously makes the car very unstable on the rear end. That's going to cause your rear tyres to overheat. That's going to cause... Oh, that's tight. You can make it very, very difficult to drive.
Very difficult to drive indeed. Well, let's catch up with Hayley Evans and find out who she has to talk to in our virtual pit lane.
So we're going to give it another try. We did actually try and have a chat earlier, but the connection wasn't amazing. So Norman Nato from the Veloce Esports 2 team. Firstly, how are you doing? We didn't hear what you had to say earlier, so if you could just kind of pick up from where you left off. How are you doing? Like,
okay,
how many...
I didn't know that. I'm okay. I'm okay. Is it better now?
Yeah, much better. Much better. And of course,
Perfect.
You're currently in 3rd place.
Perfect.
The team Veloce Esports 2. Stoffel's doing a fantastic job out there.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before. Like yesterday in qualifying, Stoffel did an amazing job. He qualified the car in P6, which is quite good because around him it was only proper gamers, so it was like a proper job, like from Stoffel. And same at the beginning of the race, we got a bit unlucky with the red flag because we lost some position at the restart. But right now we are fighting back for position. We actually changed a bit our plan because, like, when the red flag appeared, I was in the car and as we trained during the week, Stoffel was taking the start and everything, so he had more experience like in the pack, so that's why we decided to change the plan, and I'm gonna do a lot of laps tonight.
Oh, right, so you've got a bit of change of strategy. You'll be picking up
exactly.
later on in the at night time. Do you know around what time you'll be jumping in?
I don't know exactly. Like, we're still looking at the run plan, and now the plan, to be honest, is trying to open a gap and to stay with the front runners at the front of the grid. So, well, I'm staying awake. I'm here with Stoffel. We're trying to work on the strategy as well with the Veloci team, and we'll see. But I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna do a lot of laps tonight.
Fantastic. Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.
Well, thank you, Haley. Stoffel Vandoorne giving us an updated plan B, C or D, whatever it is, from the team with Normann Nato. All sorts of different plans and strategies coming into Le Mans, and pretty much from lap 1, Lewis McGlade, a lot of those plans just ripped up and start again, because racing leads the planning quite a lot. You have to adapt, don't you, and adjust. Whether it's real world, sim world, the rules remain the same.
Always. The red flag that we had a little bit earlier, that would have taken all of the team's strategy book, thrown it in the bin, ignore it. It's pointless. We'll start again. We'll see what the other teams have done, and we'll learn from that. In this scenario, obviously, the drivers at the front, the top 4 in LMP have all yet to stop. They're coming up to, we're on the 100th lap of the race.
In fact, the leaders are in now. Stoffel Vandoorne, Jesper Pedersen, Gregor Hutu, Brzezinski, Briand, Opmeer, Gabriel Aubry, Keithley, Nelson Piquet, Via, Ziggy, they're all in the pits. Gustavo Menezes has pitted. Most of them are back out on an outlap. And that leaves our leader yet again as 2Cs Motorsport. Now, it's like the drivers are having to buy the fuel themselves, isn't it? They are being very, very careful about how much they're using, and yet that car was less than 2 seconds off that lead battle. It wasn't benefiting from their slipstream. It wasn't just sitting in the tow of those 3 cars, saving fuel that way. So they are doing something very, very right, aren't they?
Absolutely. They've got a lot of experience in this car, and they've, to be fair, for 2Cs, they've picked 2 of the most experienced sim drivers in this car to give them the strategy. I know Devin Browner, who's still behind the scenes, he's got out of the car. His day is not done. From this point of view, he is now taken over effectively being the race engineer. So he sat there in Rory McDuff's ear thinking, okay, how can we do this? Let's keep an eye on those numbers. Let's keep an eye on this. And effectively, for those of you sat at home wondering how much fuel and stuff they have in the car, from full gas, from the start of the race, from a full tank, they can run 9.5 laps. Half a lap. That's no good for anyone. No. So a lot of the teams are going, right, well, we'll just do 9 laps then, and we'll just have that extra fuel to not put in the pit stop. Whereas these guys are going, half a lap. We can maybe gain that over 9 laps, and that's what they're doing. They're just saving a little bit. They're lifting into like the Mulsanne, they're lifting down to Indianapolis, into the Porsche curves. They're being very, very careful. And a lot of them have a lot of experience at this track as well in this car, so they've got so much experience to fall back on.
Now, those of you who may have been away for a while, shame on you, have noticed undoubtedly that in the last 5 or 10 minutes, the light level has dramatically dropped. You can see the sun is just above the hoardings there. In another lap or 2, it will be at the horizon. And then we're into what cameramen love, what photographers love most of all, blue light. It is the hour of daylight, and because the skies are so clear at Le Mans, as you can see, we will get that hour of blue light, but that's the real twilight before full night arrives. The light's already starting to pick up reflective surfaces on the distance boards, down to the chicanes, down to the corners, and of course all of those flag signals being replicated by light boards around the track are going to have an effect. The first thing that the drivers that are in the cars now will be doing with every lap is adjusting and adjusting. But if you're coming out now into the darkness, then that's going to be a big adjustment from the last time you drove the car. You may not even have driven the car at all if this is your first stint. So you need to make sure that you are getting very, very good at judging distances in the limited light. The view remains the same, the sound remains the same, because the sound of these cars' engines has been sampled from the real car engines running at speed, and the racing remains just as frantic as you would expect. After the last round of LMP2 pit stops, and LMP2 is our only and therefore our lead prototype category, back to the front of the field go the 4 cars that were battling just before the pit stops, but in slightly changed order. Jesper Pedersen for ByKolles Burst Esports. The number 4 car that started on pole is in second by 1.3 seconds behind Stoffel van Doorn for Veloce Esports, who was chasing him. Gregor Hutu, who was third for Team Redline, is now down to 4th, and on his outlap in the 2Cs Motorsport car, Rory McDuff, the American driver in 33, is shown as in 3rd place. Now that may change as they complete their laps, but it shows how close that battle is. Still top 4 covered by 0.3 of a second. In the GTE class though, Josh Rogers, another fastest race lap, 3:48.9. Has anyone else done a 48? No. The next nearest is a 49.29. Josh Rogers with a stunning, this is happy hour for drivers. The temperature is starting to cool a little. The visibility is still good. The track is getting faster and faster as more and more rubber goes down. Josh Rogers is absolutely burning his way through this. He's now nearly 25 seconds clear of the second car, which is Enzo Bonito in the number 52 AF Corsa Ferrari. So those cars that we're looking at in qualifying going, whoa, they're in trouble. 6 hours in, whoa, they're in slightly less trouble than we thought they might be.
I thought that Ferrari were in big trouble, even through the first sort of like 4 or 5 hours of the race. We come to the red flag, and they are looking on it. It is only the 52 Ferrari AF Corsa car. That's the one with Charles Leclerc. The other one is still quite far down the order. It's a lap down at the moment, 15th. In class. I will just say this about Josh Rogers and his pace. Was on pole by a monstrous margin in GTE. And what makes things even more concerning was that he did a 46.5, which is very fast. However, his sector times, he could have done a 45, which would have put him on pole by over a second. That is absolute madness and shows how fast he really is. Definitely one of sim racing's top drivers came into this, and I was thinking, it's R-Factor 2, he's an iRacing guy, he's won quite a bit, but he was put down as a dark horse because anything that he touches in sim racing turns to gold.
Well, he is having a great run at the moment. Of course, it's not about one man, it's about the entire team, and that's all part of it. These Sim Pro drivers are the pros in this field in the same way that they would be being led by our real-world drivers were we at the Circuit de la Sarthe in real cars. So they're leading the development, they're leading the engineering, and they are producing the quick laps. And it's the slowest stints that are going to decide the race. All the ones where you and therefore the stint is slower because you spend more time repairing damage, because that's all part of the game as well. Least time spent in the pits means you go faster than anyone else out on track. Alan McNish, that was one of the keys to Audi's success for many years. Alan didn't have his correct headset on. Alan, one of Audi's keys to success was their ability to keep the cars out of the pit lane.
Yeah, reliability came down to, I would say, something that won us a lot of races at Le Mans, but also other events around the world like Sebring 24 Hours. It was the old adage, you've got to first finish before you finish first. And there was a dogmatic approach in the way that looked at things, bulletproof reliability. And we had that from our engine department, led by Ulrich Beretsky, who actually retired just this last week. Yep. And also Dr. Wolfgang Ullrich, who we spoke to just earlier on. Above them, they sort of created this knowledge of how to do it in the Audi way. But when things did go wrong, which they did ultimately, then it was how to change them quicker than the next team. And so therefore it was two things that we always had in our pocket that we knew, and we practiced it and we worked very, very hard at it, but without a question, it's something that you've got to consider. And also here as well, because when you're on the circuit, you go fast. When you're in the pits, you don't.
Not so much. You're absolutely right. I mean, Audi had that in spades. First of all, the cars were made from gutters, and so it was very hard to break them no matter how hard you tried. And secondly, as you say, they relentlessly rehearsed fixing everything, because inevitably, whatever you don't work on, some driver is going to find a way of breaking it. So it was double belt and braces. And actually, the Audi driver of the race so far for me is Simon Pagenaud. Who on earth thinks of borrowing a spare seat and steering wheel setup and then rehearsing in their own time how quickly you can plug it in and out and swap it out with your other one? I mean, that is Audi belt and braces approach.
Oh, we should give him a trophy for that, should we?
Yeah, I thought he had enough in his room anyway.
We'll give him a belt and some braces.
Belt and some braces.
But yeah, I think it was pretty impressive. And the fact that he had already pre-tested the force feedback on the steering wheel, I thought that was the extra little special bit for me. I like that.
That really, really impressed me. And that is a little bit of social media that is going to get replayed a lot, I'm sure. In traffic with our battle for third place, Jesper Pedersen and Gregor Huttu. Pedersen dropping down the order for Bike-Oles down to 5th place. Stoffel van Dorn leads from Rory McDuff and Gregor Huttu. So up to 4th place now, and 12 seconds back is the number 13 Williams eSport car. Oh, and the number 20 car is bouncing over the curbs. That's not good stuff for Gregor Huttu. Now we're into that period of the evening where it's getting harder and harder with our studio lights on to pick the cars out on the screens in front of us, and I'm sure the fans at home will be starting to either pull the shades and turn the lights off, or maybe get something that will help them focus in the terms of liquid libation. Number 30 Rebellion Williams eSport car up to 4th place. We haven't spoken about that car in this battle for a while, and it's yet to really close in terms of pace, but Mika Romanidis, the Greek driver, is the man at the wheel at the moment. And that is Williams up into 4th and 5th position, because their number 1 car, Kuba Brzezinski, in that Williams Rebellion Williams eSport car, he is in 5th position at the moment. So Williams, that's the biggest team in LMP2, isn't it? With 4 cars, we have 4 Porsches in the GTE field. They are the biggest team in terms of LMP2 entries.
Yeah, I think that like you said, there's 4 and 4. There's a lot of teams that have 3. You can see Rory McDuff in the top right there. You can't tell he's American with those gloves on. I don't know what happened. Oh, is this? There we go. This is the question that I wanted to be asked. This is what's happened to the Bike-Oles burst car. This is coming through Corvette. Just pulls off.
Oh, okay, that's a rig failure, isn't it?
That is a rig failure. You can see, if you just look closely, you can see that his wheel is still very much turned to the left. He's come out of the corner, and basically what happens is, for those of you sat at home, if you disconnect your wheel, sometimes it'll just hold the input that you had. So if you're going through a left-hander, like through Corvette at high speed, you're slightly on the throttle, you've got a left-hand lock on. The moment that you pull that out, it will hold, say, 45 degrees of lock, 20% of throttle, and you're going straight to the barrier. So that is very unfortunate. It seems like he's re-plugged in his wheel and got moving again, but we'll let you know on that. Currently down in 11th position. Did cross the line. There's going to be some suspension damage on that car. But what was looking like a delicious 4-way battle for the lead, we now only have 3.
Well, the good news is for the Bike-Oles team, Jesper Pedersen still at the wheel, and it looks as though he is continuing. He hasn't gone into the pit lane, so he clearly is happy with whatever the issue, that he has got everything sorted out and plugged back in again. So hopefully it shouldn't be too much of a background for the Dane. 8-time Danish champion, former world champion in 24 hours racing in Sims, and he was also part of the Nissan GT Academy back in 2016 as well. So he's had his go at turning his virtual career into a real-world career as well. Focusing on our battle for GTE honours, Josh Rogers leading by a smaller margin now, gap down to 24.6 seconds. He's his fastest lap, a 3:48.930. Olivier Panis, by the way, one of the three father-son combinations in his Panis Racing AAA car number 9, which is in 26th place. He's just set that car's fastest race lap. This is a time of day, Lewis,